Today, as we kind of look at Mark 11, we're getting to the pointy end of Mark. This is where things start to get heated. This is where it all starts to kick off. So Mark 11, I'm going to read from verse 12 to verse 20. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations,' but you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. When evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. That's a pretty stark image, isn't it? There's two really powerful images there. Jesus goes up to this fig tree and it's in leaf. And then we read that it's not the season for figs, but he's looking for figs. It seems unreasonable. It seems like Jesus is being a little bit pathetic. Maybe he's a little bit hangry. He was hungry and there wasn't anything there, so he got angry and cursed the fig tree. But what we don't really know is how fig trees work and what the image is there. When I was living in Croydon with Mum, we were renting this house, and clearly they worked on their own cars. It was a 4-car garage, so it was huge. But out the back, it had 4 or 5 different fruit trees. So it had a lemon tree, a fig tree, mandarin type tree. I can't think of what the word is. Mum knew what they were. An orange tree and an olive tree. So the olives I managed to kind of jar, and I did cure them, and they worked out okay. So that was fine. We used them a couple of times. Then there was the kind of mandarini type tree. I cannot think of what they were called. Tamarillo, maybe? That was pretty good. That fruited really well. The orange tree fruited really well. They weren't great oranges, but it fruited well. In the middle was the lemon tree, and it looked super healthy. There was kind of green leaves everywhere. It was quite kind of well established. And there was a fig tree, and the fig tree was against the fence, kind of way down the back. And it was not looking great. It didn't have many leaves on it. It didn't look very healthy at all. It was clearly a youngish tree and it was droopy. It clearly hadn't been staked well. And out of the two of them, the fig tree looked the most unhealthy. But the lemon tree, while looking healthy, bore no fruit. When fruit should have been there, it wasn't. And when I examined the lemon tree, I found that it had been infected significantly with gall wasp. Now, gall wasp, they spawn their larvae into a lemon tree, into the green kind of soft bits, and they leave their eggs there, and then they take off, and the gall wasp eggs hatch, and the larvae start eating from the inside, and so the lemon tree looks all bulbous and looks like it's got kind of drill holes all through it. And it was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere through the lemon tree. The only way to deal with gall wasp, because it keeps coming back if you don't deal with it properly, is to get rid of every little bit that gall wasp had affected. Every little bit. So I had this beautiful looking lemon tree that had leaves everywhere, and I cut it right back. Cut it right back until pretty much it looked like a stick sticking out of the ground with a few other sticks coming off it. There was not much left of it at all. It looked super healthy. It looked really healthy. But it bore no fruit, because actually on the inside of the tree, where you could actually get up close and see it, it was really sick. It was infected, and nothing was getting to the kind of branches for fruit to grow. Jesus is going up to this fig tree that is looking healthy. It looks like it's bearing fruit, because fig trees bear fruit every kind of 2 years every year, 2 seasons every year. And when they bear fruit, they have leaves everywhere. So kind of when the leaves start coming out, and in leaf is what we see it is, well, there should be fruit there. So even though it's not the season for figs, the tree is putting out the image that there are figs there. Now, the tree itself is is just an image. The tree is cursed as an image because the tree is an image for what the Israel was like, for what the Pharisees, the religious leaders, the Sadducees, those religious leaders at the time, what they were like. The tree said it was bearing fruit. The tree had all the hallmarks outwardly that it was bearing fruit. The tree had all the hallmarks that it was doing the right thing, doing what it should have been doing. But it was not bearing fruit. The Jewish leaders, the kind of religious leaders, the Pharisees, Sadducees, those kind of guys, they had all the outward trappings that they were bearing fruit. They had all the outward trappings that said they were doing the right thing. If people looked at the fig tree, they would have thought it had figs. If people looked at the Pharisees, at the religious leaders, they would have thought they're doing the right thing. On the outside, they would look like they are holy, they are righteous and following God. But the tree is a symbol of what they're actually like. While it might look great, while it might look like they're bearing heaps of fruit and it's super healthy and they're the ones that are kind of the pillars, they're actually spiritually dead. They're not producing any fruit at all. It is just all outside trappings. And Jesus cursing the tree and it being withered is a sign of what is to come. He's going to make them look outwardly what they are inwardly. They're not bearing any fruit. They're not doing the right thing. They're unhealthy on the inside. They're dead on the inside. And so they're going to look like that on the outside. That's the image that is made by this tree. So when we read that in Mark, knowing what Mark wants us to get from his gospel, it's a really stark warning for us, isn't it? It's something that really makes us think. We've got to really think about what our outward appearance is in comparison to what's actually going on. Do we look really, really healthy? On the outside, do we look like everything's fine? We are righteous and holy and all good. But actually, we're not producing fruit at all. There is no fruit that is being offered. We are not doing the right thing, because that's what Mark is after. Disciples to follow Jesus appropriately, to bear fruit, to be good disciples. So when you're reading through Mark and you get to this point, there is a warning. Yes, you could look at the religious leaders and go, oh, gee whiz, they were well off. They had it all wrong. But the thing is that we're meant to look at this. We're meant to understand this as a warning for us as well. It's not just about how we look on the outside, it's actually about what we produce. That fig tree that I mentioned right at the start in the garden, in my garden, not this fig tree that Jesus cursed, the one that looked really sick, that was droopy off to the side, I went over and I gave it a shot. The lemon tree, I gave a really solid pruning and it did start to come back, but it didn't bear fruit for ages and ages and ages. In fact, it didn't bear fruit at all while we were there. The fig tree, I thought, well, I'll give it a shot, and if it's no good, I'll just pull it out. It's just annoying to whip a snip around. I'll just get rid of it if it doesn't work. I staked it up, I stood up straight, and not that long after, leaves everywhere. And you know what was on that tree? Really nice figs. Really, really nice figs. A mate of mine loved them, and I mentioned it to him, and so he came over to have a look at it, and he tried to grow a fig tree and could not get any figs out of his tree at all. It just never grew. This one that looked sick and sad and was really, as I was looking at it, no chance. All it needed was a stake, and although it didn't look necessarily great at the start, man, there were fruit everywhere. Really good fruit. The challenge for us as disciples of Jesus is to not judge on the outward appearance and to not put forward this false appearance. If we're wondering where we sit with Jesus, if we want to kind of be good disciples of Jesus, if we want to do the right thing, if we don't want to be like the fig tree in our Bibles, if we don't want to be like the people of Israel, the religious leaders who looked great on the outside but had no fruit, well, it's an easy fix, actually. It's a very easy fix. We've just got to look at what fruit we're producing. Are we producing good fruit? Can we look at ourselves and truly say that actually what we're doing is good and the fruit we're producing is good? That it's not that we look great on the outside but actually producing no fruit. No, we might look great on the outside, but we look great on the outside because there's fruit everywhere. As disciples of Jesus, our job is to produce fruit. Our job is to make other disciples. Question for us, a serious question for us, this question that Mark presents to anyone who reads Mark, is, are we like that fig tree, looking really healthy, but actually producing no fruit? Or are we disciples, producing